Hopefully my dog will not interrupt us. But hello, everyone. Welcome to Black Book Stacks. I'm your host, Toshonda Sanders. I thought I would go live because I have not really had a chance to check in with you guys during February, which is awkward for a YouTube channel that is about and for Black authors and about Black books. So welcome. I wanted to talk a little bit about Valerie Boyd. I don't know how many of you are familiar with her or know her, but she's an amazing scholar and journalist. She in 2003 published Wrapped in Rainbows, The Life of Zora Neale Hurston, which is one of my favorite biographies of Zora. And she passed away. I think she had a long battle with cancer, is what I read on February 12th. And I just have been thinking a lot about her and the work that it takes as a Black woman scholar and journalist to prioritize writing a biography or writing about the life of a Black woman like Zora Neale Hurston. And so have just been thinking about her and that. If you haven't read Wrapped in Rainbows, I definitely recommend it. It's really generous and lovely, and it read like fiction. I remember just feeling like, first of all, I was stunned by this image, but also just felt like before I read Valerie Boyd's, the cover jacket says that it was the first biography of Zora in 25 years. So I think that's true, but also I think she gives her proper credit to Alice Walker and tells a fuller story of everything that it took for Alice Walker to not only like reintroduce Zora to the American canon, but also just how valuable that was to literature writ large, not just for readers and Black readers in particular. But Valerie Boyd was working on this beautiful book, which is Gathering Blossoms Under Fire, The Journals of Alice Walker. And this was scheduled the last time I checked in on it, which was a while ago, on April 12th of this year. But Valerie Boyd edited these Journals of Alice Walker. Apparently, Alice Walker kept journals for many years. Those of you who don't know Alice Walker is the author of The Color Purple, The Temple of My Familiar, In Search of Our Mother's Gardens. I'm a huge fan of Alice Walker's. I interviewed her years ago when I was a young reporter in San Francisco. And I understand that The Color Purple is now going to be a musical. But anyway, so this incredible collection was edited by Valerie Boyd. She talks about, it has like really great footnotes so you can understand like the process and some of the things that Alice Walker was also reading, including Tilly Olson's Silences, which I had never heard of. But when I started reading it, I immediately went to check it out from the library because it's so amazing. Yeah, apparently Alice Walker would start a new journal and maybe reference the others or not. She started her first draft of The Color Purple in her journals, so that's pretty cool. I didn't realize that. It was going to be called something else. She finally landed on The Color Purple or Purple, so that's cool. It's just really interesting to see the way that writers, women writers in particular, and Black women writers for various reasons don't necessarily talk about the financial aspects behind like what they're doing or how they're keeping the lights on. But it's so cool to see Alice write about like buying a house and needing to do X speaking engagement or working with Ms. as a consulting editor and trying to make it work so that she could have enough time to devote to her novels and to her writing while also being a mother. and a partner and just a person. So anyway, the loss of Valerie Boyd, I think in the aftermath of Bell Hooks's death, is particularly sobering because, I was thinking about what Bell Hooks said in Remembered Rapture, which is that the Black woman writer is always writing against time, understanding that like we are greatly affected by these health disparities. And so, it's just gives me a new sense of urgency to continue doing the work and staying dedicated to it as much as possible. So that said, these two books you should definitely pick up. Gathering Blossoms Under Fire, The Journals of Alice Walker, which is forthcoming in the spring, and Wrapped in Rainbows, The Life of Zora Neale Hurston by Valerie Boyd. Hope she rests well. Let's see. In February, I have been reading quite a lot about. I've been all over the map reading things. So I was working on a roundup for the spring and the summer. So I got a sneak peek at some stuff that is coming later in spring. But I guess I'll just give you an update on The Great Mrs. Elias, which I'm still making my way through, even though I think it came out already in February, if I'm not mistaken. I am about halfway through. It's juicy. It's definitely a historical novel. I read a review. Here's the finished copy, by the way. So isn't it gorgeous? I read a review that said that like it picks up in the second half essentially, and then it comes alive really at the end. But basically, like by the time you get to the end, you may not make it there. So anyway, I'm trying to make my way to the end because I want to know what happens. But the main character, the great Mrs. Elias, is super compelling and really interesting, and just, is running around being sort of this woman of the world, woman of the night, I think is what they're called. And that's really interesting to me since it's old time New York, like 1800s. Turn of the century. There's like some bank craziness where like people have to take their money out and she has to like go get a bunch of gold from the bank, and like it's very, I don't know. It's just nice to know that there's like all this craziness that's happening, like, from back in the day. Things haven't changed that much since the 1800s. It doesn't feel like sometimes, but we'll move on from that. One of my favorite reads this month was Black American Refugee by Tiffanie Drayton. I think that I brought this one up before because I was just excited about this beautiful cover. And if you can't, because I don't have my glasses, and I won't put them on because, whatever, being vain. But this tagline is "Escaping the Narcissism of the American Dream." So the main conceit of this book is that Tiffanie Drayton is from Trinidad. Her family's from Trinidad. Her mom moves her and her siblings, maybe plural, from Trinidad to America. They are based not just in New York and in Queens, but like also in Miami. I think they try Texas. And over the years, basically, Tiffanie, the author, who I think wrote kind of the core of this essay that became the book for the New York Times, like basically likens her experience in the US with being in love with a narcissist. And because I've dated narcissists, and I think a lot about narcissists, probably more than I should, but they're narcissists, so like, how can you not if you've been involved with them? So that's another probably YouTube channel and situation and story. But anyway, probably something I need to write about. But so she weaves in this like history that I think is super compelling. I'm going to try to find some of it. But you know, it's like I highlighted this section. I left America not only to find freedom, but first and foremost as an instinctive act of self-preservation. Leaving was a decision made based on my human drive to survive. In fact, in that act, I found rebirth. I discovered a life unburdened by the constant distress of inferiority. In America, my Black life was narrowly defined in a way that colored it gray, dark, and dingy, rife with grit, hardship, and constant disappointment. Upon my return to Trinidad, my Black life became one enveloped with the greens and blues of the ocean, mocha, caramel, and mahogany faces, in the rainbow of pinks, oranges, teals, and yellows of glittering carnival costumes. A life where I could live out the wildest dreams of my ancestors as a fully liberated African woman in the West. Very cool. And then what she realized, I think, is because I'm fuzzy on the timing of like when she left. If she left before the Trump administration, I think she left and came back. But the pandemic also factors a little bit into the book. And so she says, from an ocean away, I had fuller access to my heartbreak and rage in a way I never could when those powerful feelings had to coexist with my drive to survive within the system. There is stuff in here that really rang true. And also stuff that I just didn't know. So for example, she talks about the stereotyping of poor Black people as thugs and crackheads and crack babies and all this other crap. And she says, by digging more deeply into my history lessons, I learned that the 1866 Apprentice Act legalized the kidnapping of Black children under the guise of providing them with guardianship and providing good homes for them. These children were then used as forced unpaid labor. Did you know that? I did not know that. So there's some other stuff in here that I just didn't know. I can't remember them, of course, because now I'm doing a live and you are watching me look for the the actual history. But you know, and you know, I guess, you know, I'm not really sure how strictly she sticks to the analogy of the narcissism of the American dream and her relationships and how they kind of echoed that. But there are statistics in here about intimate partner violence and health disparities. It just was revelatory in a lot of ways. Talking about breaking up with America, but then also breaking up with various narcissists and abusive partners, and like America as one of those abusive partners, which I think is probably will ring true for a lot of people. So Tiffanie Drayton, Black American refugee, you know, of course, and I just was thinking about this, there, you know, was that whole, Bendito, no, sir. There was that whole evacuee Hurricane Katrina situation. I don't know that it came up necessarily in this book. There was a lot of ground to cover, but yeah, so that's probably why I was also really drawn to that language, to see what she would make of that and if that would come up. I recently also got a copy of Ladee Hubbard's collected short stories, The Last Suspicious Holdout. And Ladee and I have crossed paths at residencies, or at one residency in particular. So I was excited to read this. I have not read her novels. If you have, I would love to hear your thoughts about them. I made it into 1.5 stories in this collection. It is very interesting and relevant to my interests. It's based in the 90s. The stories are set between 1992 and 2007, a period which lauded the emergence of a new Black middle class, even as images of welfare queens, super predators, and crack babies abounded in the media. So super interesting, very compelling. I kind of love this cover. There's the stories are connected, so that like there are characters that will appear in one story that appear in another. So almost like a novel in that sense, but like definitely takes different perspectives from what I'm seeing so far. So I'm excited to dig more into that. This one comes out in March, I believe. I loved Memphis. So this is the story of a family called the North family, and they are essentially like the father who builds the house in North Memphis. Myron is the first Black detective on the force in like the 40s or 50s before civil rights. And he, I won't give away like what happens to him, but essentially like everything that happens in the house to him and to his wife Hazel kind of sets the foundation, which we don't really find out about until like the middle of the book ish, for what the subsequent generations of Norths will contend with. So there is Joan and Maya, who are the daughters of Miriam. Miriam and her sister August are some of the more fascinating, compelling characters. We spend a lot of time with them. The book alternates perspectives and also moves back and forth through time from around the 1940s through like early 2000, like around 2001-ish. One of the most significant characters is Joan, Miriam's daughter, who has an early sort of traumatic experience with one of her cousins. And she can decide whether or not that's going to like ultimately ruin her life through her own bitterness, or if it's going to be something that she uses to like overcome not only the thing that happens, but also other challenges and disappointments and heartbreaks that occur in the novel. Tara M. Stringfellow is a poet, and you can tell at the sentence level because all of the sentences are so lovely. It's very Southern. It's like a very Southern family novel. It did remind me actually of Zora Neale Hurston, which is uncommon. I'm not really one to be comparing people to Zora Neale Hurston because that seems a little bit like, let Zora Neale Hurston be Zora Neale Hurston and not call anybody else the new Zora Neale Hurston. However, it's just that beautiful. So I highly, highly recommend it. I believe it's coming out in April now. It was originally scheduled to come out in March. And then finally, Dele, Weds, Destiny by Tomi Obaro is this great novel about these three friends who haven't seen each other in like 30 years, but one of their kids is getting married. That's Destiny. And so they all reunite in Nigeria, and we get an experience of like how their friendships developed. And look at this beautiful cover also. But you know, all of the drama and the fun and the humor and the competition and the jealousy and the secrets, everything that comes with being in an intimate friendship, I think, is kind of unfurled there. So that's definitely one to look out for. I've mentioned The Civil Rights Queen before, but I finally got a finished copy of the book. Isn't it gorgeous? So in case you missed that one, this one is here. I did also kind of dip into Moon Witch Spider King by Marlon James. And I'm not sure it's time for me. I don't think I can add it to my list of things to read at this moment, but I'm I'm really curious about this African Game of Thrones conceit and whether or not it also applies to Moon Witch Spider King, which I think it probably does. But anyway, so that is what I have for you. Thank you so much for your donations, for your likes, shares, and subscribes. So nice of all of you. I hope that you're reading something delicious if you watch this on replay. And I look forward to seeing you again relatively soon. Until then, keep reading.